If I could go back and have a conversation with my 25-year-old self about money, I wouldn't tell him to buy any specific stock. I wouldn't tell him to time the market. I wouldn't even warn him about 2008 financial crisis. I would tell him 5 things. And 4 of them almost no one explained to me when I started in finance over 20 years ago. This isn't theoretical advice. I've spent 23 years in finance, the last 16 as a board member of a development bank in Eastern Europe. I've personally appraised and approved over 10,000 financing projects across every size and every sector. I've watched fortunes get built and fortunes get lost. And here is what I wish I'd understood at 25. Quick context on who I am and why what I'm about to say is worth your time. I've spent 23 years in finance. I started in macroeconomic research, working for over 2 years at one of the largest Dutch economic research consultancies. From there, I moved into development banking. 21 years at the development bank in Eastern Europe, the last 16 of those as a board member, until I stepped down in September of last year. During that career, I negotiated and implemented financing programs with the World Bank, the European Investment Bank, the Council of Europe Development Bank, and UNDP. I represented our institution at the European Association of Public Banks. I've also authored and co-authored several published papers on macroeconomic and financial topics. And I've personally appraised and approved over 10,000 financing projects across every size and sector. Regarding my education, an American university in Rome for undergraduate, postgraduate work in the UK, and a period at the London School of Economics. Alongside that institutional career, I've been investing my own money for over 2 decades across UCITS, ETFs, real estate, crypto, individual securities, and basic savings. So, I've made most of the mistakes you can make with your own money, and I've learned from them. And on the institutional side, I've seen up close how big financial decisions actually get made on projects worth hundreds of millions of euros. The 5 things I'm about to tell you aren't a get-rich-quick framework. They are what I genuinely wish someone had sat me down and explained to me when I was 25. They might save you 10 or 15 years of mistakes. Here is the thesis. At 25, the biggest decision you are going to make about your financial life are decisions of direction, not magnitude. Where you start the train matters more than how fast it actually goes. So let's get the direction right. The first thing I wish I'd understood at 25. You have one advantage no professional investor with billions in assets can buy back. That's time. Compound interest is the only force in finance that generally rewards the patient over the brilliant. Let me show you a number that should make you a little bit uncomfortable. Let's say there are 2 people. Both invest 200 euros per month into a global ETF, averaging 7% annual. Person A starts at the age of 25. Person B starts at the age of 35. Both stop investing at 65. At retirement, person A has roughly 525,000 euros. Person B has roughly 245,000 euros. The 10-year head start more than doubles the result, and person A only contributed 24,000 euros more in total. So here is what nobody tells you. If you wait until you have enough money to invest, you've already lost. The first 100 euros you invest at 25 is worth more than the first 1,000 euros you invest at 40. So start now, even small. Quantity of time matters more than quantity of money for the first decade. This is the single most important lesson on this list, and it's one most 25-year-olds dismiss because the immediate reward is invisible. The second lesson, and this is one where the financial industry has a vested interest in you not knowing it. When you look at an investment, you see the headline return. What you don't see, and what most people never calculate, is what fees, expense ratios, and transaction costs do to that return over decades. So, quick definition for anyone newer to this. When you buy a fund or an ETF, the fund manager charges you a small annual fee for running it. This fee is usually called the expense ratio, or TER, total expense ratio. It is expressed as a percentage of the money you have invested, and it's quietly deducted from your returns every year you hold the fund. Most investors never see it as a separate line item. That's part of the problem. Let me give you a number that should change how you look at every fund you ever buy. A fund charging 1.5% per year versus one charging 0.15% per year. Sounds like a small difference, right? Over 40 years, on the same starting capital and same gross returns, the higher fee fund leaves you with about 40% less money at retirement. That's not a typo. 40%. This is why TER, or total expense ratio, should be the first number you look at on any fund or ETF, not looking at just past performance. A 100,000 euros portfolio at 1.5% costs you 1,500 euros every single year, year after year. Most people would refuse to pay 1,500 euros for almost anything in a single transaction, but they happily pay it annually to fund managers because the fee is invisible inside the return. Lower cost beats higher costs almost always over long horizon. UCITS ETFs from Vanguard, iShares, Xtrackers, and similar major issuers typically charge 0.07 to 0.3%. Active funds typically charge 0.8 to 2%. The math compounds against the active fund. Third lesson, and this is one I had to learn the hard way. In your 20s, you feel pressure from yourself, from friends, from finance media, to pick the next great stock, the next Apple, the next Bitcoin, the next Tesla. Smart, ambitious people especially fall into this trap. Here is the brutal truth. Well documented in finance research, over any 20 years period, more than 80% of professional fund managers, those are people who do this full-time, with research teams and Bloomberg terminals, they fail to beat a simple global index fund. Over 30 years, that figure is closer to 95%. So, if 95% of professionals can't beat the index, what is the realistic probability that you, at 25, with your weekend hours and the same Wall Street Journal everybody else reads, are going to beat it? The answer isn't zero, but it's close enough that the expected value of the strategy is negative. So, buy a broad market ETF or two. Add to it monthly. Ignore stock tips. Save yourself a decade of stress and underperformance. This boring strategy beats almost everything else, and it requires no skill, no research, and no anxiety. This isn't because picking is impossible. It's because in a market of millions of competing analysts, your edge as non-specialist is structurally tiny at best. Fourth lesson, and I get to say this with the authority of someone who spent 23 years inside banks. When your bank advisor recommends a wealth management product or an actively managed fund, they are actually recommending the product their employer wants them to recommend. Their incentive is the bank's revenue and not your returns. I'm not saying bank advisors are dishonest. Most of them are actually decent people. I'm saying their compensation structure systematically produces recommendations that benefit the bank more than the customer. Internal kickback structures, sales targets on specific products, in-house funds with higher fees, these are all real. I've seen them, and I've seen the internal P&Ls. What does this mean for you? Don't buy investment products from your retail bank. Open an account with a low-cost broker, Interactive Brokers, the Giro, Trade Republic, Trading 212, depending on what's available in your country. Buy index ETFs directly. Pay 0.1% to 0.2% TER instead of 1.5% to 2%. If you only learn one practical thing from this video, separate your bank account from your investing. Keep the bag for current accounts, deposits, and convenience. Invest through a low-cost broker. Final lesson, and this one might be the most important psychologically. When you are 25 and watching news headlines about market crashes, recessions, geopolitical risks, there is a powerful temptation to just wait, to stay in cash, to invest later when things are stable. Here is what 23 years of watching financial cycles has taught me. Things are never stable. There is always a crisis, a war, a recession, a risk, a bubble warning. This time is different thing, unfortunately. If you wait for clarity, you wait forever. And while you wait, inflation is silently destroying your purchasing power. A 10,000 euros cash deposit in 2000 has the purchasing power of about 5,500 euros today, after 25 years of inflation. The saved cash position turned out to be an inflation-induced loss of nearly, half of your money. The market crashes you are worried about, even the worst ones, 2000, 2008, 2020, 2022, they were recovered within 5 to 7 years for index investors who just kept on investing. Sitting in cash is guaranteed loss to inflation. Sitting in a diversified index is a probable gain across any 10-year window in modern history. The biggest risk isn't the crash, it's the slow decay of money you didn't put to work. So, those are the 5 things I wish someone had told me when I was 25. 1. Start now. Time is your edge. 2. Watch your costs. Fees compound against you. 3. Buy the market. Don't pick winners. 4. Avoid your bank's investment products. Use a low-cost broker. And number 5. The biggest risk is not investing. Cash dies slowly. If you are 25, 30, or even 40 watching this, most of these still apply. Start where you are. The math doesn't care about your starting age, only the number of years you have ahead. On this channel, I'm going to break down each of these in much more depth, including specific UCITS ETFs European investors should look at, how to think about portfolio allocation across age, and what I actually own in my own portfolio. If you found this useful, please subscribe so you can catch the next ones. Drop a comment with what you wish you'd known about money at 25. I read everyone. I'm Ivan. Welcome to the Banker's Notes.